Howdy. Welcome to Between the Bears and the Bulls. And today's guest is a friend of mine, Tailai Huang, and he's somebody who brings humor, hustle, and a whole lot of entrepreneurial insight to the table. He's actually taught entrepreneurship at TCU, built a business in the heart of Clear Fork, and somehow still found time to go alligator hunting. From growing up in China to dreaming about a ranch in Montana, Taylor's journey is anything but conventional. And that's exactly why we're excited to dive in. So thanks for being here and enjoy the show. Taylor, welcome to Between the Bears and the Bulls. So excited to have you, man.
Thank you for inviting me.
Dude, this is gonna be
Yeah,
a
I've
lot
never
of fun.
done something like this before, so I had to do a little homework and go into YouTube and
Dude.
see some episodes, and that was great.
Hey, man. Well, it's gonna be best one yet, right? We're gonna have a good time today. So, man, I find you so interesting. We've obviously known each other for a long time. Used to live in the same area there in Mira Vista here, and I think you're so fascinating. And I kind of want to start off with like your beginning, right? And so tell me a little bit about what life was like for you, because you're from China, right? And so coming here to the United States, give me a little bit about your background.
Yes, so I was born in Shenzhen, China, and my mother moved to Hong Kong in the '80s from mainland China. She was working for a corporate out in Hong Kong, and that's how my dad and her met. And my mom was a English teacher at a elementary school, and my dad was a businessman, and he was born at the right time with all the with China making made such a huge development in the early '90s, and he started his career owning a factory that manufactures all the glass windows
For like buildings?
for buildings.
Okay.
And so,
Skyscrapers?
yeah, you
okay.
see them now. It's windows without frame,
Right, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Looking from the outside, and he was the first person in China to figure out how to do that, and at a fraction of the cost from from Italy.
Really?
That was the country that originally started doing that. Yeah, so he ran a successful business. Passed away. He passed away when I was 10, and so that kind of put the family in a tough situation. And my mom actually quit her job from being a school teacher, and started a manufacturing facility and assembling facility for Conair hair dryers.
Really?
And started manufacturing Conair's their commercial kitchen equipment line, Waring. And it was kind of funny. I grabbed this coffee from the cafe downstairs.
Yes.
And they were using the panini machine that we manufactured.
You're kidding me. How crazy is that,
I know.
man?
I was talking to them. I was like, hey, do you guys like using that? And they're like, yeah, it's pretty solid. And I was like, awesome.
Dude, it's amazing to me because and we're going to talk a little bit about it today, but you're just in so many different businesses, the true entrepreneur. I mean, and it's interesting when you hear kind of that background, and you feel like you got that from your family, right? I mean, they always had that knack for it.
Yes. I felt like my dad was more of a visionary guy, and he was very smart as far as like great intuition on what's the next big thing. Great negotiator. I feel like my mom's the opposite. She was the keep your head down and grind through. And coming from that background, I feel like I learned most of my business senses, I guess, from them too.
Yeah. Did you always know? I mean, obviously they shaped you into seeing what it was like running their own business, right?
Right.
So, I mean, did you realize, knowing that your family were kind of entrepreneurs and seeing them, is that why you're like, okay, I feel like this is kind of the direction that I want to go. I want to go the business route, right? I mean, I saw them succeed in doing it. I want to do the same.
Yeah, for sure, but I don't really know at what point that kind of the seed got planted in my head. Maybe it's just all along.
Yeah.
But when my dad passed away, obviously I was still going to school, and every day my mom would send somebody from the factory to go pick me up from school.
Yes.
And then I would do my homework there at the factory in her office. And so conversations that she had, or with vendors, or with workers or whatnot, I'm a part of it.
Yeah.
You know? And so I feel like I certainly learned a lot from that, and that always fascinated me.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And that was at a young age that you're sitting
That was
here
at a
here.
young age. Yeah.
And I would say that it's probably atypical that 8, 9, 10-year-old is listening to business deals
Yes.
in between doing homework,
Yes.
but definitely helped shape you, I imagine, in doing some of the deals that you do now, right?
Yes. And again, I feel like I learned a lot of, my experience with my mom was seeing how hard she worked.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of things later on that I participated in, I kind of had to go back and think through how she succeeded.
Right.
And I needed to pick up a little more of that. And I'm sure we'll go into it here.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot. Let's just say I learned a lot through a lot of good and bad stuff that I've been a part of.
Was there like a moment that you had where you thought to yourself, where you go, you know what, I want to own something myself. Like I want to start something myself. I want to own something myself. Was that at a young age? Was that, through college? I mean, when did you start getting that sense of what it is to be an entrepreneur, right? Starting something from the ground up.
I think the turning point there, because I knew I wanted to be in business, but I had no idea what that looked like.
Yeah.
I took on a internship and selling softwares. It's like a school management software. You go in, you see all your grades, where your homeworks are, how you pay your tuition, stuff like that. I was doing that in Dublin, Ireland, and that was a program that TCU had, and I took on that opportunity. I went there, started selling software, and it was almost like cold calls. I would go from school to school and just do that, and I did pretty well at it, but I absolutely hated it. Number one was I had to report to somebody, and I hated that. And number two was I feel like I had great ideas, at least for my age back then. I thought they were good ideas.
Right.
And it just got shut down like that. And I was like, dude, that's such a good idea. You can't just, toss it in the trash just like that, And so came back from Dublin, and I was like, I don't want to deal with that again. I want to be able to do whatever I want to do.
Make my own decisions.
Yes. And then if it's a bad decision, I'm okay with being the one who suffers from it. But
exactly.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that, because I think about my experience. So I don't know if we'd talked about this, but I did investment banking for a summer in between junior year and senior year of college. And it was much like the same thing. I knew I wanted to be in finance. I really loved people. I wanted to be around people, and I thought investment banking, because that's what all my other classmates were doing when they were going into investment banking. I thought that was the right, move. And then you realize, and you go in there, and I much had the same experience where you're like, you got to make no decisions, right? Yeah. And in a weird way, it's why I think this business has been so great, and why I was driven to it, is you work harder, and you want to work harder when you're running and you're building something for yourself.
Absolutely.
Right? And so, we're both of us not afraid of hard work, right? That wasn't the issue. It was more of I have these ideas. I want to drive this thing, but you can't do it when you have somebody who basically is telling you what to do or what you shouldn't do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's I'm with you. I definitely get that. All right, talk about your first business venture, right? And so graduated TCU. Yeah. What was your first business venture? And something tells me that it was prior to graduating was your first business venture. So talk a little bit about how it went and what you learned from it.
I sophomore year at TCU, one of my best buddies, we played golf together all the time. We actually played club golf at TCU. He was from Austin, great buddy of mine. I visited him in Austin a few times and got very close with his family. And his dad was a independent oil and gas man.
Okay.
And if you don't know about this, but in China, natural resources and banking and I believe like cell phone or these are some of the industries that government has the full control. It cannot be
There's no private business.
It cannot be in private sector.
So it's oil and gas,
natural resources,
anything natural resources. Okay.
Yeah, and then I believe I could be wrong, but that and I know banking.
Okay.
Yeah, and so naturally I got super fascinated by it because I'm like, oh, I didn't know you can just.
You could
go in the backyard and just boom, drill a hole and the oil comes out. And you're like, man, I'm rich, you know? That's kind of sick. So I was like, I want to learn about that. And I got very close with his family. I just wanted to learn. And at that point, funny enough, we were actually neighbors.
Yes.
When we first met was at the gym.
Yes,
and
that's right.
The
tower.
The tower.
Yes. In the
downtown.
condo. That's exactly right.
So what happened was when I was going to TCU, my mother said, hey, let's find a good spot in downtown Fort Worth, which is a growing city.
Mm-hmm.
Where we can buy your condo, then you don't have to pay for the housing. And when you're done, we can probably sell it. Whether we make money or not, at least we're not paying for housing.
Right.
And so that was the original idea behind that.
So I didn't realize, so you didn't live on campus at all during your time at TCU?
I did freshman year.
Okay, and then you moved to the tower, the condos where we met. Okay, got it.
Yeah, that's when we met.
Yes, exactly.
And so that was actually also the time I was starting to learn about this oil and gas stuff.
Okay.
And so by whatever coincidence happened, there was room in the oil and gas deal that my buddy was working on in Austin. And so I was like, man, I would love to be a part of it. And so he was like, okay, sure. Like, let me know how much you want to participate and whatnot. And I got on a call with my mom. I was like, I think we need to take this advantage. And she was fully in on being a part of it, but she was not in on being involved to the extent that I wanted to be.
Right.
And so I was like, well, that's cool. And I quickly realized I wasn't going to convince her. I packed everything I got from the tower, and I moved it right down the street to an apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And I was packing up to go back home for the summer. I called up my real estate agent who helped me to buy the condo. And I was like, hey, by the time I get back to the state, I want this thing gone.
Yes.
And I want the money in my bank account because I'm going in that oil and gas deal.
Wait, so you decided I'm going to sell the condo,
Yes.
use those funds, going
Yes.
to go into a small apartment so that I have the funds to be able to do the deal.
To the extent I want.
I love it. Now, does your mom know this
She
or
does
no?
not.
She has no idea about this.
She had no idea about this. And so I got back home, and mom's like, everything good? Like, how's the condo? I was like, oh, condo's great. In the back of my mind, I was like, it's about to be gone. and so yeah, I came back. Money was in place, and I dumped the whole thing in the oil and gas deal. And then about, I think it was 9 to 10 months later, we actually ended up getting bought out by one of the partners that was already in the deal as well, and that kind of got everything started.
That's so awesome, man.
Yeah.
How'd your mom finally take it when she figured out what you did? But it was very profitable, but was she happy after the deal, or did you get a good talking to after that, you know?
I think after that, because she still lives in China right now, and so we're obviously not close by each other, and so I think after that, I'm sure she was extremely frustrated, but I think it also came to a point when she realized that I have zero control over what he's going to do because of the distance.
Right, yeah.
And so I feel like she probably had to cool herself down and really make peace with, that's the reality.
Right,
now.
yeah. Yeah, that 12 to 13 hour time difference probably helped in that situation, Mom, I was asleep when you called. I'm sorry. But I imagine the fact that it was a positive result probably helped quell some of that frustration,
Yeah.
just a bit. Okay, so let me ask you, should I call you Professor Huang? Because I know you also had a little teaching stint at TCU. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it wasn't really a teaching. I was more like a guest.
Okay.
I would go. I went to, I think, 3 or 4 different classes.
Cool.
During the actually just post COVID or maybe before COVID. I can't remember.
Okay.
And on the business foundation or the entrepreneurship.
Right. Yeah.
And I quickly realized that I was still a little too early and too young
Okay.
to do that. So I'm glad I wasn't a true professor in teaching.
Okay. Yeah.
I was just, speaking and giving out my personal opinion
Right.
on how I would build a business. And so, but yeah, I did. It was fun. And I think the biggest realization I had from that was, man, I don't know if I would be able to get in TCU now. Like these students are so smart.
Yeah.
So so much further along than I was when I was
Yeah. No
going
doubt.
to school there.
It's the people that you meet sometimes, and I do some interviewing for college admissions, and it's like, oh my gosh, I mean, you have some pretty impressive, kids and students that are going on to higher education. So it's well, that's good. Just know I would have loved to have been a part of that class. By the way, just to get a few pieces of advice on entrepreneurship. I imagine it was a very fun class to attend with Taylor.
It was, and
Yeah.
it was pretty free.
Okay.
I kind of let people go ahead and say
Yes.
whatever, let us know your opinion, and
Yeah.
it will be a free debate. And class actually gets pretty riled up. Like
Oh,
people would go against each other on their opinions.
That's good though.
Oh, it was awesome.
Yeah.
There are times I was standing up there and I'm just enjoying this conversation. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I can use a bucket of popcorn.
Exactly.
It's
You
great.
need to do that. Isn't it a master class? You know how they do the master class, that online kind of deal
Yeah.
where you have these individuals and successful entrepreneurs come and talk about what it is and how they did it. So it's when you get your official master class, let me know so that I can join, because I know that I'd learn a few things from it.
man.
So without a doubt.
You'll be my guest speaker.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah.
All right, now let's talk a little bit about your current venture. Right.
Okay.
So this has been really cool, and so out here in Clear Fork, in Fort Worth, there's a new retail location called Marché Bleu.
Yes, sir.
All right, tell me a little bit about this thing, and how in the world did you go from oil and gas into this venture?
Like I said, oil and gas kind of got the ball rolling.
Right.
That was, I think that was a great thing to kind of propel me to start whatever I wanted to do.
Right.
But I also, now looking back, I felt it came a little too early. And
The oil and gas deal?
it did.
Okay.
And I think when you're handing a 23-year-old student a huge check and said, hey, your first business venture was practically a home run,
Right.
I got a lot of confidence. And I felt like I had more confidence than my experience and knowledge can back up at the time. And you talk to a lot of professional athletes, and they always go, oh, I was feeling great. I was feeling confident. That's why I had a great game. Well, yes, that's because they work on their craft night in and night out, and they're truly great, and they needed the confidence to get them over the hump. I was on the other end of the spectrum there. When you don't necessarily have the skills, craft, and you have all the confidence in the world, that's just not necessarily a good thing.
It's not a good combo.
It's not a good thing. So after that, I became very involved in a startup community. I see a lot of deals, talk to a lot of people, and I caught myself finally around 2022 or I look back, I realized, man, I was so trigger happy. And so I feel like I did not spend the necessary time to review every deal and do all my research, or just the most basic research, like if somebody come out with a financial product or an app that sells financial product, who am I going to call? Probably you, right? Like that's the easiest research that I can do with least amount of effort.
Right.
Was to find somebody that knows about this.
That's interesting.
And let's chat
the
through
experts, basically utilizing your knowledge base of experts around.
I was not doing enough of that. And so I actually kind of got myself into a bit of a hole. I feel like overinvested to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm not generating enough exit and returns back to funnel better opportunities coming down the road.
Right.
And so that kind of happened, and so I took a few years to kind of get back and be a lot more selective on the deals and say no first, and then let's see if we can figure out a way to make it work. And all that bring back to Marché. Around 2023, I have a friend of mine was actually living in one of those apartments in Clear Fork. His idea was, hey, I want to put a convenience store, 7-Eleven type of store in that space, because you got all the workers, you got all the built-in market right in front of you. And he reached out to me because Kenzie, my wife, her family was one of the largest private owners of convenience store chains.
Okay.
And so he wanted to see if they would think this is a good idea.
Sure. Going back to this idea of asking the experts. Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So who do I talk to? Them, right?
Right.
And so when we're talking about it, I quickly realized, given the rent, I can't sell enough cans of Coke to pay that. And so I have brought on two of my friends who are also done some investments with me. One is Jason Helm, from Mira Vista, and then the other guy, Matt, who went to college together. And so we kind of just sat down and tried to figure out what do we need to do to capture the need, yet be able to back up the rent.
Right.
And so the idea of a elevated specialty grocery store quickly merged because we also heard about the store out in Dallas, Foxtrot. So we're like, hey, if we can do Foxtrot, but more so craft it to Clear Fork demographic, even more elevated, and pay more attention to ingredients and all that, I think ingredients of coffee and, like the things that you carry in the store, I think there's a real potential there.
Yeah.
And so, and that's kind of when we started putting all the ideas together and figuring out how to secure the lease and, start a store.
What's been the most surprising thing about opening up a physical store location? Because I think about your previous ventures, right? Like an oil and gas venture, some of the real estate stuff you've done. That's like you make the investment, but you're not necessarily have a physical
Day-to-day.
place, right? Day-to-day where you're actually dealing with customers and clients, right? What's been the most surprising thing about that?
Oh, I felt like we had a pretty good business plan, like a pretty detailed one. But now you're looking back at that, you're like, that's kind of a joke. Like there are so many things that we never even thought about.
Right.
And number one was weather.
Yeah.
And right, like now I'm sitting here, I'm like, hey, you're gonna tell me weather largely impact this business? I'm like, yeah, it makes perfect sense. But before you start the store,
You don't even think about that.
you don't think about that. How many sunny days we get out of the year?
Yeah.
Did not think about that. But
Right.
weather plays a huge part of how well we do on a day-to-day basis.
Well, I didn't even think about that too, because you've got that little outside
Patio.
a little patio area, right? Which obviously plays a big part of that.
And I feel like just in a rain or stormy weather, people just don't want to leave.
They don't
the
want to go
house.
out, right? Exactly.
And so I think that is and then I feel like taking care of employees, and that's everybody's got something going on.
Yeah.
There's unfortunate circumstances or things like that, and that you can just never figure out until it comes up.
Yeah.
And then but I also feel like working with a customer and working with the employees is also one of the most fulfilling part of it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been great. It's a lot of learning in that when we first opened, our revenue was pretty strong since we've been very blessed. We do about 270 transactions a day.
Wow.
And so that's kind of, that established a pretty good baseline.
That's great.
For us. But what's been difficult was, things like spoilage and figure out what people will buy and what people won't buy. And it's like you don't have ways to figure that out other than try.
Right.
And when you try and it don't move, it's money down the drain.
Right, exactly.
And so it took a while for us to figure that out, and yeah.
Well, okay, so I got to know, what would I be surprised that people buy consistently that you didn't necessarily think, like, this is going to be a hit? I got to carry this,
My personal one.
Yes.
Was canned fish.
Canned fish?
Yeah.
Who's eating canned fish?
I don't know, but they
So
sell
they do.
pretty well.
Okay.
And when the GM brought it in, I was like, I don't know about that one. But
yeah. Somebody's
we're
doing
still
it.
ordering. So
What's the top selling? I'm assuming the canned fish isn't your top selling. Is it the wine that you're selling? Is that probably?
I think the best seller right now would be coffee.
Okay, coffee.
We sell.
That's right.
A lot of coffee.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I think wine is probably pretty close in our breakfast items.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And last part about this, because I'm just interested. How do you decide and where do you source like the places to get all of these specialty foods, right? Because you've got, places or items from everywhere, it seems like. How do you actually decide, oh, this is the cheese I want, this is the wine that I want? Do you have to go through and actually taste all that stuff yourself, or how did you do that?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Number one, in wine as well, we taste a lot of wine to figure out what we carry. But we also...
That doesn't sound like a bad deal.
No. I mean, I can't complain about that.
Right,
Even if I do, nobody believes it. So, but what we have to be really mindful about, and I actually caught myself doing this a few times, was I enjoy something. And I was like, oh, home run.
Right.
But what I forgot was people may not like it.
Right, not everybody.
And, it may be a Taylor's thing.
Right, yeah.
Right? And so, yeah, like canned fish, right?
Right.
I personally wouldn't buy it, but there's plenty of people out there that enjoy them.
Yeah.
And so, so number one, I do try it. And number two, a big thing about our store also was we pay a lot of attention to local business.
That's cool.
Local vendors. And so if you go through our breakfast item, most of our ingredients are locally sourced.
That's great.
Weatherford or Dallas, but Fort Worth.
That's why the stuff is so good. I mean, it's an awesome job. Y'all done
and
a heck
and
of a
it has
job.
a lot of local recognition, right?
Yes.
People are like, oh, yeah.
Everybody knows about it. I mean, it's such a cool deal.
It's great.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit here because I want to talk about entrepreneurship more as kind of this idea, right? And so I'm curious to hear from an entrepreneur like yourself. In your mind, if we get a little philosophical, what makes a good idea when you think about entrepreneurship, right? Because I'm sure you've thought of things where you're like, oh man, this is going to be, as you said, a home run, and it didn't turn out to be a good idea. Now that you have more experience and you've gone through so many ventures, in your mind, what actually makes a good idea a good idea?
Everything personal based.
Yes, yeah.
Number one, I feel like it needs to, the most basic one would be it has to satisfy a need that's currently out there.
Okay, right.
Number two, it needs to be easily understandable to people.
Okay.
I have sat through a lot of pitch. By the end of it, I'm like, I still don't quite know what this thing does. And so, I think if you have a hard time explaining to people to be a part of it, you're probably going to have a hard time to educate the customer to buy it as well.
And sell it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think 1, 2, and then number 3, it needs to have a market that you can easily see. It's not a market that you need to go seek, but it's like, oh yeah, I know people that would totally buy it.
Yeah.
So
That's perfect. Do you look at, okay, so that's the framework. And then are you looking from a number standpoint? What then do you decide, okay, these are the things I'm going to invest in, right? That's the good idea. But then to actually make the investment, because you could have probably all three of those things that you talked about, and it's still not worth Taylor's investment, right?
Right.
So is it then just about the numbers and deciding this is something I want to put capital into? Or is it something more than that?
numbers, I have gotten to a point I don't look at it nearly as much.
Yeah.
Because most of the deals that I got are projection. Projections can be whatever.
Right.
And also there's a lot of uncertainty. Like, who would have thought we had the rate increase like we did in 2023, right?
Great point. Yeah.
If you're in real estate investments, that's something you can't really foresee.
Account for, right, and plan for.
And so numbers get to a point. I mean, numbers does need to make sense to a
to a certain extent.
Yeah, if your projection was like, oh, it gets you about 6% a year, I'd be like, well, I'd rather not do
a deal like that, a risky
private
deal.
investment deal on that kind of return.
Right.
And so I think that's a part of it. What I think now my most important thing was kind of like three rules. I no longer do deals with people I don't know. I don't do deals with people I don't like. I don't do deals with people I don't trust.
That's perfect.
And I have gotten to a point where, back then I was trigger happy, and I think a lot of that was the attraction to the potential of the deal. And when they talk about potential, I know athlete is the same way. When you're talking about potential, that's not really a good news, right? Like, potential can be there, but it's the execution. If you don't know the person that's really running with it and executing this deal, it's hard to really understand what this could turn into. And I've seen a lot of great idea with very poor execution.
Yeah.
And I've also, failed and gotten burned from those deals before.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the three things I do. And if you bring two deals next to me and one number is slightly worse than the others, but I know the person that's operating it, I trust this person, that's the one I'm going with. And I would allocate a lot more on that one than anything else.
I mean, the pearls of wisdom, I think that can apply to not even just an entrepreneur. I mean, that can apply to a lot of things in life. It's like if you don't trust somebody, if you don't know them, this is probably reasons that you don't need to go down that path, Yeah,
and I think being where we're at in Fort Worth, it's I laugh at this all the time. It's a decent sized town.
Yeah.
If you go Google
for sure
Fort Worth population.
Right.
But it's also a small town feel. And I've been to places like Maui.
Right.
And then people are like, oh, where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from Fort Worth. And this guy goes, I know somebody from Fort Worth. And you're like, get out of here, right? And then they say some dude's name, and you're like, do you actually know the person? And now you're like, I don't, And I was talking to my buddy Jason, and he Jason Helm, and he's my partner too on a lot of deals, and he does the same thing. He has the same experience, and so it's like, it's a large city, but it's a tight knit group when you get to some point, and so at that point, a lot of these deals actually don't make their way through everybody in this town.
Right.
It's if it's a quality deal, it's done right away.
Right.
And it's about the person, you trust the person, and they got a good reputation in Fort Worth, and and that's kind of how I feel like most of the deals in Fort Worth now gets done.
I couldn't agree more. This is a very, very small, big town.
Yeah.
Because everybody That's why you never burn any bridges here in Fort Worth, because you just never know when it's going to come back to bite you,
It is.
So yeah, definitely something to keep in mind when we think about this. All right, so let's switch gears again. I want to hear more about this ranch dream that you got. So tell me more about the fun stuff, the ranch dream that's going to be where Taylor is going to ride off into the sunset.
I enjoy it because I feel like you just kind of don't have to use your brain a lot.
Right, exactly.
But I mean, man, sometimes you sit down in these like small town diners and you run into these people in overalls.
Yes.
And denim overalls.
Do you have overalls?
I do not.
I've got a pair of overalls. I went to college, to A&M College Station. You had to have the overalls, man.
That makes perfect sense, because I feel like these people that I ran into in a small town diner in the denim overall.
Oh yeah.
Some of the smartest dude I know. So exactly. It only makes sense for you to have one.
Yeah, there we go.
But you're like sitting there, it's like a Waffle House, and you're hearing this old timer behind you bang the newspaper on the table, and it's like, oh, I mean, with the cattle price, they're trying to figure out how many cattle they hedge with a bank to take out loans to bring out calves.
Yeah,
and it was like, oh my God.
Right.
And you're doing all this without an Excel? It's like, that's crazy. Exactly. And so, but yeah, I really enjoy that. I love being outside. Yeah. I love hunting.
What kind of hunting, Taylor? Because I kind of remember there being a unique type of hunt that you just went on.
I love going after like crazy, dangerous animals.
Okay, so you got to tell me.
Yeah.
What was it that you just did here over the last year?
I went on an alligator hunt last year. I went on a mountain lion hunt.
Oh my God.
In 2 weeks, I'll be in Alaska going after a Kodiak bear.
Oh my gosh, man! And I didn't know about that one.
Yeah,
that's gonna be crazy.
And I'm currently trying to figure out for a warthog and a leopard out in Africa.
Oh my God!
I think my wife Kenzie's about to find out from the podcast. We have not talked about that one, but
okay, you got to tell me about your dream for your alligator den. Right.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Tell me about
building
this.
A house. Want a man cave in the back. Inspired by one of the friends I know. He's a big hunter. He has this huge crazy man cave with all stuffed animals that he had trophied before, and so I want kind of like a large pit, maybe 4 or 5 feet deep, and then the pit's going to be between the couch and the TV, and then I want to put my taxidermied alligator down the pit, and then we'll put like thick glass like that so it's safe to stand on, and then I'll put like fake crystal and fake grass down there to look like the gators in the swamp. And
it's so awesome.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited for that.
Does Kinsey know this is coming, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, she does. Okay,
yes.
She's not learning about this on this podcast. Okay, good. Dude, that's so funny, man. Well, please invite me to the Taylor Yellowstone whenever it is complete.
The zoo.
Yeah, the zoo, exactly,
The zoo.
because that will be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, do you envision yourself doing deals for the rest of your life, or will you get to a point to where you say, I've had enough, I'm done?
I absolutely do.
Yeah.
I love the excitement comes with it.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a degenerate thing for me to say, but it feels a lot like a roulette table in Vegas.
Yeah.
Every time you invest in something, it's a bit of a gamble. You get that rush. Yeah, and it's kind of like hunting a dangerous animal.
Yeah, exactly.
Pulling out a gator from the swamp is kind of get you going a little bit.
But you've actually done that. It sounds like so
yeah,
that you can actually say that.
But yeah, I think I absolutely will. And I really enjoy partnering up with people who are working on some that they're like, okay, this is gonna be my home run. This is gonna be my dream. This is gonna, catapult my career forward.
Yeah.
And would you be a part of that? And being able to feel like we're winning together, it's also
awesome.
a great feeling from that.
So you go back and you tell Taylor, who just got to school here, some advice, right? I always like to know this now with all this experience. What are you telling your younger self about what to expect over the course of, your career? Any advice you'd give yourself?
Man, that's a question that you hear people ask people, but
Yeah.
I never thought about that. Okay. For myself, take a chill pill, dude.
Yeah. Relax.
Keep your feet on the ground, and things don't have to happen at the pace that you think they need to.
Yeah.
You have more time than you think.
I love that.
Sit back, think through it.
It makes me think. So I'll tell you just a side story here because I think it pertains to what you just said. But a couple years ago, we hosted a contestant for the Clyburn piano competition, and so he lived with us for a month.
Right.
And and it's the competition is involved, right? I mean, they're playing like over the course of that entire competition, it's like 4 hours worth of music that they have to have memorized and played. And so we were talking with him. He's 20 years old at the time, and Emma was asking him, what happens when you just have one of those performances where you're just like, this is awful. Like, I played awful. This was horrible. And this 20-year-old, you know what he tells us? He goes, and he said in this very low voice, he goes, you must just relax and enjoy your defeat. And I was like, okay, you just relax and enjoy your defeat, and so it kind of goes back to this. So, but the idea was, he would always just have, you kind of relax. You don't let yourself get too worked up about anything. And I think it's a great motto to live by, right? I mean,
when you're young, you always feel like if I miss this, there will never be anything like it again. And you feel like you're being rushed to make a decision, but it's just how it is.
Yeah. All right, last question, man. This has been so much fun for me, and so I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. But what's lighting you up right now? What's gotten you excited? What's something you're looking forward to in the near future?
All the crazy hunting trips.
Yeah, that Kodiak bear, the leopard.
I recently got married last year.
Okay, yeah.
And so, going from and my wife, she came from a M&A background.
Yeah.
She worked for merger and acquisition for Scott's Miracle Growth, the fertilizer company.
Right.
And so, completely different philosophy and style of acquiring investments, all that. We're doing a lot of deals together.
That's cool.
And it's a completely new thing for me. It has been awesome for me because it forced me to slow down, think through it, so I can pitch it.
Oh, yeah.
And convince her to do it. And while she's picking it apart, that makes me think twice and figure out where we're going. And because, we got married just last year, this is kind of a new thing.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to see what this partnership will also bring for the future, because I think we work well together. Yeah. And we have actually just crossed the $1.25 million mark for our investments.
That's
together.
Awesome, man.
So I'm excited to see what that will bring.
Dude, well, I approve and appreciate of working with spouses, given that Emma actually works on our team as well, and I'll second that, man. Getting to work with your spouse can be incredibly rewarding and beneficial, especially when you have two people who have very different ways of looking at things.
Yes.
Right? And so
it could get frustrating.
It can, but that's also positive. Just because it's like, I'm sure she's constantly challenging you.
Yes.
And you're challenging her, and that ultimately what leads to success. So,
Absolutely.
Taylor, this was a blast, man.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I so much enjoyed getting to visit with you, and like I said, once the alligator den is ready, I would love to come and check it out.
Please
so,
do.
Yeah, let me
Please
know.
do.
All right, thanks, brother.
Yes,
Appreciate
sir.
it. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.